I thought we were talking about masculinity.
We are.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
How are we talking about masculinity? First of all, I'm not convinced that the theory that what we have is a patriarchal hierarchy is correct to begin with. I don't understand why people would even begin to conceptualize the world that way. Better in what way?
Masculine role in child rearing is something like the erection of the walls, so that play can manifest itself within the walls. That's a real good combination of security, because that's what the walls are for, but then the kind of freedom that allows for untrammeled development to occur in the most positive possible sense. And so would say that those of us who are standing against the radicals who insist that the only human motivation is power can oppose that in part by putting forward the observation that the proper antithesis to that is the spirit of voluntary play, and that's what we hope.
According to you, what is a real man, or what should he be?
You should want the best for people, for you, for your family, and for the community. Courage is a good thing. Courage in the face of life's difficulties. One of the things I suggest to the people who are watching my videos, for example, is that a good ambition is to be the most reliable person at your father's funeral.
You think that nowadays men lack virility, that they're not men anymore?
No, I think that you could make a case that they are punished for those virtues and so are less likely to feel confident in their expression or development.
You feel that society nowadays tells men that it's not okay to be ambitious?
I think it's definitely the case that happens.
How men can be men. Why do you think there is such a crisis of masculinity in the first place, and why are there so many people out there who are angry at you for even talking to men?
What I see happening to young men in particular, boys as well, not just young men, and maybe even, maybe starting at the age of toddlers, is that we have this sense in the world that human beings live in antagonism to nature and that we're actually a malevolent force, and that our social structures, which are clearly capable of the commission of atrocity, are fundamentally oppressive, patriarchal in their nature. And so then if you're a male in a society with that ethos, the motive force that drives you into the world to live is associated with rapaciousness and despoilation on the natural front. It's like, well then, if you're the least bit conscientious, because this sort of accusation hurts conscientious young men the most.
You think the hierarchy of the patriarchal system is a good one?
Well, first of all, I'm not convinced that the theory that what we have is a patriarchal hierarchy is correct to begin with. I don't think that way, because I don't understand precisely what that means. Does that mean that women had no role in shaping our society? It's only been the last 10 years that people have made the presumption that it's self-evident that what we live in is a patriarchy. What women haven't contributed? Is this the point we're making? Is that women haven't contributed to our society? They just weren't there until 1965, and all of a sudden they took their place. All the women before that weren't doing anything at all. It was all patriarchy.
You don't feel that globally men have the better end of the stick?
No. No, I don't believe that globally men have the better end of the stick. Like what? I don't understand why people would even begin to conceptualize the world that way. Better in what way?
My question is, what is the antidote towards toxic masculinity?
Well, the antidote is responsible masculinity. And what does responsible mean? It means, well, if you're responsible, then you're trying to do what's honest first. So you're careful with your speech and your actions. You're careful with your speech in that you don't say things that you know to be false. And you're careful in your actions so that you don't have to lie about what you do. That's a good start. And then the next thing would be that you're capable of taking responsibility for yourself at least, so that once you're an adult, no one else has to bend over backwards to ensure that you don't unduly suffer in the world. And so that's responsibility for yourself. And then if you get halfway good at that, well then, you might think about taking on the responsibility of a family and contributing to your community and doing all those things in a harmonious manner. There is a particular crisis with regards to what might be described as proper pathways to masculinity. I also think that's at play. So I think there's two factors. But I don't think And Kathy Newman kind of went after me about this. You know, she said, well, you know, if you're directing your message towards young men, which I wasn't, but assuming that's the case, isn't that divisive? And I would say, well, I don't think it is divisive, because first of all, the masculine in women also needs to be developed. It's very, very important. And the people who are the enemies of the masculine in men are also the enemies of the masculine in women. So if you overprotect your sons, let's say, you overprotect them in part and weaken them because you're afraid of their masculine energy, you're going to do exactly the same thing to your daughters. So
a female child would similarly be disempowered.
Oh, definitely.
It's opening more and more.
Yeah. Well, no, we're not
Is a
going to
woman
go
soldier
down
not
that.
as good as a man soldier?
I don't know whether a woman soldier is as good as a man soldier. I know that in most armed forces, women aren't placed in high combat frontline positions.
Who is responsible for this, the demasculization of the society?
Feminist groups have a fair bit to do with it, and the radical left types that insist that what we live in is a patriarchal tyranny.
What is the issue with feminists nowadays?
They think that the idea that our culture is a tyrannical patriarchy is an axiomatic truth. Well, I think that's complete nonsense. The insistence that sex, gender identity, and gender expression are social constructions, the insistence upon that, the insistence that if there are any differences in outcome, that's a consequence of oppression. That's what's up with them.
Privileged people that the world has ever produced they take. Everything they have for granted, failing to understand entirely that there's a massive infrastructure of unbelievably hard-working, solidly laboring working-class men, breaking themselves in half on a regular basis, making sure that everything that always breaks works. So a little gratitude for that is in order, and it's very useful to tell everyone, not just men, that they have an important role to play, a necessary role, and that if they act properly and honestly and forthrightly, that they can put their lives together and they can help their families.
Then what are the alternatives?
How do you explain so many men, so many young men follow you, listen to you?
Because they need encouragement. And they need a reason for growing up. And I encourage them and give them a reason to grow up.
What are you
It's better to grow up than to stay immature. I don't believe that I'm a guru. I don't think that you can be a guru and tell people to take their own way. You know, I'm asking people to develop a vision for their own lives and to adopt the responsibility for that, but it has to be something that's personal.
But do you feel responsibility then?
Yes, absolutely. Fundamentally, this is supposed to be helpful to people.
What if I told you that you're playing on young men's distress to make all that money?
That accusation has been leveled at me before. I don't know how I'm playing on their distress, exploiting it or helping it.
The fact
Look,
is,
I've
a lot
said
of
right from
people-
the beginning that I'm an evil capitalist. I don't make any bones about it.